Hi. Today I was wanting to do a Superman look, one for my best friend, and two so then I could talk about the movie. I had some very strong opinions, let's say. But other than that, we're just gonna have fun with this look. I'm first going in with the Elf Thirst Burst Drops. But the first thing that I wanted to say about the movie was I had my suspicions. As someone who is definitely more of a Marvel person, I was suspicious because I never actually liked the DC movies, I guess, because none of them, most of them were pretty bad. And I'm not saying like the actors were bad, or that like they weren't, successful movies, I guess. It was just the fact that like none of it ever made sense. For example, like I loved the Suicide Squad. I thought those were very good movies, but specifically the first one, I thought it was good because it stuck to a story and it the actors could play both parts of both their superhero or villain, I guess, as well as like their personal character. And I thought they did very well, especially like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. She's always done very well. But for example, like in the Superman movies, by the way, I'm going in with the House Labs Triclone Skin Tech Foundation and 070 Fair Neutral. Anyways, in the Superman movies, like Henry Cavill specifically, that's the one I'm talking about. Like he could play a good Superman, I guess, but he could never play like the nerdy Clark Kent. And also, I felt like his Superman was always very like serious, and I felt like that was never the point of Superman. I feel like Superman was supposed to be kind of like this dorky. I mean, of course, serious. I mean, he's saving people and shit, but like he would never take himself so seriously to the point where it's like this hardcore man and whatnot. But I thought David Cornsweet, hopefully I said that name right. If I didn't, I apologize. But David Cornsweet, he all like I thought he played both the character of Superman and of um Clark Kent very well because he easily slipped between the both, and you could see the similarities while also not losing the individuality of both like, the actual person and the alter ego. And I think another actor I kind of had a problem with playing a certain character was Robert Pattinson, that dude from Twilight. I thought he just didn't play Bruce Wayne well, but I think he did Batman okay, like actual Batman. And I think that's the problem with a lot of actors and actresses is sometimes they get into this like niche where they play one certain kind of character, and sometimes it works. But like with Robert Patterson or with Patterson, I'm not on a first name basis with that man, but he always kind of plays this socially awkward character. Like, for example, Twilight. Another example would be kind of like the Devil All the Time, where he played like this weird ass um priest or pastor, I guess. But like that works for those stories because it like that kind of plays into the character. But with something like this, it's an alter ego as well as like the real person. So if you can't switch and kind of morph between the two, then it's pointless, I guess. Because, for example, like Batman is socially awkward. Like that's kind of his thing. He's kind of to himself. He doesn't really talk to others. And I think that's the whole point of Batman to kind of, I guess, be on his own. But with Bruce Wayne, he's this, billionaire playboy, I guess. And he's supposed to be like cocky and confident. And oh, by the way, this is the Faux Fay palette for face in shade too. Um, but he like is supposed to be this confident and cocky and like well spoke. I don't know, well spoken is the right word, but like he runs a business and he's a billionaire and he's supposed to be, you know, he's supposed to act a certain way, at least like he does in the comics and like in his story. But if you can't switch between being, the socially kind of awkward, quiet, more cold Batman, then how are you supposed to play the kind of more the more cocky, confident Bruce Wayne? Like you have to be able to switch between the two, and I thought that David Cornswit did that very well. For example, I thought that he did very well when he spoilers if you haven't seen the movie, when he and Lois were about to do the interview and he, switches from Clark Kent to, Superman. And like he quite literally changes within the scene. Like he, changes his posture, changes the way he talks, changes, the words he uses. And I thought like that's very clever in, what people are looking for within like a DC movie because most of them have alter egos. I'm not saying that like Marvel doesn't, but also like most of the Marvel characters, like they are their alter ego in a way. Like Tony Stark is Iron Man. Like people know that, people like associate him with that. They have a very similar personality. Like I don't think of Iron Man and um Tony Stark as like two different entities. Oh, that was the House Labs Triclone Triclone Concealer in O2 Fair Golden, by the way. But with DC movies, a lot of them like their alter ego is a lot different than their real persona. And I just don't think that Schneider has done a very good job picking actors that can kind of shapeshift between the roles. Except I don't know if Schneider did the first um Suicide Squad. Correct me if I'm wrong. But like I thought Will Smith did good as Deathshot, and I thought Harley or Margot Robbie did well as Harley Quinn, and it works, and everything else worked in that movie. But then you go into the Batman movie or like the Henry Cavill movies, and it just work. Doesn't work. And that's why I've always like kind of avoided watching DC movies because half of them just were so bad and they didn't look good. But that was my first problem, or first thing that I thought that the Superman movie did well was fixing the whole like being able to change between personas and stuff. Another problem I've had with like past DC movies, and I'm not saying Batman specifically because Batman's supposed to be dark and stuff. I mean, when they have made everything so dark colored and so depressing, like they took all the color out of superhero movies. Why would you ever do that? And that's why I also love Marvel movies because there's still like color and stuff. And I think that's like, for example, I didn't really love the past. Oh God, hair in my eyeball. I haven't loved the past Spider-Man. Not saying the characters themselves, but like the just like the overall color and aesthetic of the movie was not my favorite because it was so like depressing and dark. And I know like superhero movies aren't supposed to be like yay, but like they're they come from comics, colorful comics. Another problem I've had is that they always took away kind of like the signature style of a lot of the suits. And I mean specifically Superman. I don't quite remember or know how the suits are supposed to look for the other characters, but I mean specifically for Superman because like a lot of times they took away the trunks, and I know like a lot of times it looks silly. I think in an interview, David Cornswet said it very well, which is, you know, maybe the point of the trunks is to look silly because it makes Superman more approachable. He doesn't seem as powerful or as you know unhuman because he's wearing these silly trunks, and it's kind of like I think he said something along the lines of like the trunks allow that bit of comfort for like the people Superman saving because it's like you can laugh at me, I can take it, and I think that's very powerful. I'm going back in this buffet buffet palette and dipping into the powder. But oh shit. Ah, I also really liked that in this Superman movie, like the other characters fit so well. And I think this is just a problem with casting. And I'm not saying that the other like actors and actresses for the characters were bad. I'm just saying that there's some actors that just fit better for certain roles. And like I think that James Gunn did a really good job with picking his Lois Lane and his Clark Kent and his Jimmy Olsen. Hopefully I said that name right. God, I went, but yeah, like those are like some really big opinions I have. Um, but yeah, speaking of just like bad casting, I feel like there are so many movies where they either cast someone that's really big or they cast someone that is smaller but not for the role. And by that I mean like for example, like Tony Stark when he I guess did Iron Man, he wasn't like, what he is now. This big famous store. I mean I think at that point he had, some work under his belt, but it wasn't, Iron Man status. I'm going in with the Milani Make It Last original, by the way, to melt this all together. Like with other roles within the MCU, like they chose actors that had experience, but they weren't like these big actors. Because you imagine, like, I feel like in a lot of roles, they would choose like Tom Cruise or like, you know, with DC, they either choose really big actors or they choose actors that aren't good for the role. And I'm not saying they're bad actors. I'm just saying like they don't have what it takes for that specific role. Like I think when Henry Cavill first, did Superman, and I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it. He wasn't that big, but also I just don't think his style was meant for those Superman movies. Oh, I'm going in with the benefit precisely of my brow pencil in J5. I'm trying to think of a role within the MCU that I thought was like is a perfect example of someone who's who was smaller, but then gained popularity from the MCU and like has done really well since then. I feel like Anthony Mackie is a good example. He plays a phenomenal Falcon and now Captain America, and then another one that I think is highly underrated, or two actually that I think are highly underrated, but I think they are like, oh my god, they're so perfect. Is Danny Ramirez and Louis Pullman. Um, Danny Ramirez plays Joaquin Torres, who is now the new Falcon and who's like kind of the apprentice and the sidekick of Sam Wilson. And I recently watched Brave New World. It took me a while because I was on my banned Marvel kick, and I thought that he plays a really good character. Mind you, I don't know how Joaquin Torres is supposed to act within the comics or whatnot, but I think his character fits so well within the MCU. I think, having kind of like that younger, goofy guy to appeal to like a young, I mean, not that younger kids are watching it, but like in the universe, like a younger audience, and also a hero that, worked hard and who also has like real hero experience as being like a soldier. I think it just all works together. It's really smart. And I think Danny Ramirez does a really good job at portraying that character. And then with Lewis Pullman, he kind of always plays this slightly, I don't know, shy, awkward guy. And I know someone's about to be like, you just said you don't like that. Here's the thing, he can switch between, being the kind of terrified and scared Bob Reynolds into like the cocky and confident, Sentry, but then this very hard, cold void. And I think he does it very well. And I think like that's what some casting directors just kind of forget and they don't think about is the whole like multi, I don't know, multi persona thing is, and it kind of screws them. It kind of screws them because, in the DC movies, I feel like they don't do it well. I'm gonna go in with this Revolution True Icon palette. I'm gonna go in with the shade 12. It's like this light color all over my eye. But I feel like I've talked a lot about Marvel in this Superman video. So now I'm just gonna talk about the movie. So spoilers. Um but I really, really like the movie. Like when I saw the trailer, it was like the first ever like DC movie that I actually wanted to go see. I thought like it looked very, it looked like a comic. Superman suit's mainly blue. Okay. Not me forgetting what the suit looked like. Whips. I thought the movie did very. I'm going in with this uh Morphe 9C Matte Essentials palette and going in with the shade Stonewash. I think this color. I never know how to read the colors on the backs of palettes because like I don't know if it's mirrored and supposed to be like the color it's like underneath or I don't know. I'm going in the blue color, whatever. I thought it was very well. Like the music, like I had been hearing it all over TikTok, and I thought it was such a funny little song. But then when I watched the movie, I was like, "Oh, that's what they, that's what they were talking about." It's crazy because like Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Terrific, that's a whole different movie. Haven't seen it. Would love to though. Pedro as Mr. Fantastic, but I thought that every character and every actor that played every character did a very good job. And also, I don't know why everyone's hating on Hawk Girl, but I thought she was a great character. I think she represents like all those, ladies who, are underestimated. And then, spoilers, she threw that the leader of, I forgot the country's name, but like the leader who was kind of the who was the bad guy, excuse me, off like multiple feet in the air, just threw him onto the ground and killed him. Also, I don't know why people were hating on her screeching when, like, she's a hawk. It's a hawk. It's kind of the point. I'm going in with the James Charles Artistry palette. Mind you, I wish I didn't have to use this palette, but it's the only like really colorful palette I have. Um, I'm not asking for you to go do this, but I do have an Amazon wish list full of things for future looks for content. Um, it's in my link tree if you ever want to go buy from it. You don't have to. Sorry if my talking's all over the place. I'm not good at these talking videos, but I wanted to chit chat. I thought that Rachel Brosnahan was such a good Lois Lane. Like I thought she one looked perfect. she like, I don't know, she just embodies Lois. I thought her little sass made sense. I thought that her being a bit kind of apprehensive about the world kind of is, she represents what most of us people are. She represents what most of us girls are. And, Superman is always trusting. And I think them being a little pair is the cutest thing. And it makes so much sense. God, that shit ain't blended. And then I forgot what his name was. I'm so sorry. But the actor that played Jimmy Olsen, he cracks me up so much because when, again, I don't know if this is a spoiler technically, but when the girlfriend of Lex Luthor, that little kind of blonde bimbo, was like, Jimmy. I thought it was really funny because, you know, he's just like, I'm doing this for the world. The actor that played Lex Luthor was also very good. I thought he was very bratty and it made so much sense. And also the look of him made a lot of sense. This is the messiest look I think I've ever done. It's literally like shit. It's the actual fact that my phone just kind of said, you have no more storage. Stupid. I think I'm gonna do the red next. The fact that David Cornsweet could also play Ultraman, like, and also, by the way, I know like it kind of wasn't like acting, like he wasn't really acting it out until like towards the end of the movie, like when the dude lost the mask, and then Ultraman was revealed to be, spoiler, the clone of Superman that that Lex Luthor made. I just think that like the fact that he was able to play like a robot kind of was really cool. Oh, I have a really good idea. Oh, I just had a good idea. I don't know how to make this look good. I love talking about movies. Genuinely, I'm such a movie geek. Also, I learned what the difference between a geek and a nerd was, and I've been calling myself a nerd. I kind of am a nerd, but like I've been using the wrong term. And I'm a movie geek, and like I could talk about movies all day long. Like the Wicked movie, oh my god, I'm so excited for part two. And like Avatar movies, so excited for the third movie and every other movie. Wide, it's gonna be so good. Oh my god, my under eye. I also want to do gaming. Like I used to have a Lenovo Legion 5, and then I got, or my, it, English, it burned in a house fire. Funny, really funny. I would love to start doing gaming, but I just don't have it. I don't have the stuff to do it. I also don't have the storage apparently on my fucking phone. I hate when people in like franchises, and this isn't DC, I guess. I don't know of any DC movies that do this, but like I hate when they recast like a previous like actor as a new actor or a new character. Like, they were doing that with Robert Downey Jr. and that shit. Oh my god, so mad. Also, they're restarting the whole DC, or not DC, Marvel universe after Secret Wars. That's crazy. Another thing I really hated about like DC movies before Superman, or the most recent Superman, is the fact that like they took all the fun out of it, in my opinion. Again, this is all like my opinion. You don't gotta agree, girl. I feel like everything was so. Where the fuck is the brush? I just had it. Like I feel like they just took all the fun out of it. Like no color, no fun music. Like, and again, Suicide Squad is like one of the only movies from the DC universe I'm like, I can get behind it. This is the Shrek X Revolution palette. We love him. And I'm using Cuddle to put like just to make the red shimmery. Sorry if I'm not talking anymore. I don't know what else to talk about when it comes to DC. I'm telling you, like me and my friend kept having this conversation in the car, and yet I forgot half the stuff that we brought up. My dear, and she's a DC nerd, and she was agreeing with me. Okay, so then I'm going in with Furball. It's like this golden color. Also, watch me have done the whole thing wrong. Like these aren't Superman's colors. I'm pretty sure they are. I really hope that James Gunn does the Justice League some good because like I feel like Zack Schneider was such a bad not I don't know what other movies he's directed besides like the DC ones. But I feel like they're just so bad. They're so bad. I hope that James Gunn continues to pick like not necessarily like small actors, but just like lesser known. It's like David Cornswell, he's been in some like decent projects, but he's just not as well known. And like Rachel Brosnahan, again, she's been in some. Speaking of a that's James Cameron. JK. I was gonna say James Gunn movie, but speaking of like Avatar and stuff, like oh my god, I saw the trailer recently. I'm so excited, but I feel like Neytiri needs a break. Give that lady a break. She lost, her home. She lost her dad. She lost her son. She lost her sister and soul sister. Like, girl. Also, I will never understand why Neytiri fucking hates Spider. I mean, like, I don't love him either. Especially at the end of the second movie. You're literally married to, a ex-soldier who was paralyzed. And you saw him in his, like, real form, like his human form, and you still married him. You still had your children. Ooh, what was that? I also love when people, like, brands do, like, movie inspired collections. Because, girl, I would be buying that shit if I had the money and, like, displaying it. Last step. We're using the e.l.f. JellyPop Glow Reviver Lip Oil. I got this yesterday. It smells so good. So, this is with my glasses on. The glare is terrible, but you'll live. And then get real up close to you. No, I'm not. Okay. Mind you, I'm still an amateur. I don't know what I'm doing. But this was fun. I feel like it does embody Superman in a way. But, the real critic is my best friend. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope that my opinions weren't too offensive to the DC community. And I also apologize if I stopped talking at some point. I think the last part of this video, I kind of stopped talking simply because I was focusing a little too hard and also I had nothing else to say. Anyways, I hope that you like and subscribe. I hope that you go and find my other social media accounts, and I hope that you have a lovely day. So, bye bye.